going to call? You're going to call the Speaker of the House, Bill Batchelder, whose number is 614-466-8140, 614-466-8140. And very politely, you won't get the Speaker on the phone, but very politely tell the staff that you want to pass House Bill 114 and 254 in order to make Ohio less attractive to the tens of thousands of illegals that are coming into the United States now. And it is critically important because this, what some call an invasion, an invasion of the children on the southern border, it is going to get much, much worse. You know, it's incredible to me, the deception, and I don't have to tell you, I know, but the deception that occurs through the news. And you hear these people in the news saying, well, you know, this is all going on because George Bush passed this law, you know, that said that it was against trafficking of humans, and gee, we're just stuck with this, I guess. We didn't have this problem when George Bush was president, and we didn't have this problem 6 years ago, or even 4 years ago. This problem began to develop when Barack Obama issued his executive order, the DACA order that I talked about, that it essentially invited folks to come into the United States knowing that they would not face any serious enforcement issues. That's when the trickle became a tidal wave. And on the other side of the sheet of paper is more bad news, because that tidal wave is going to become an absolute monsoon. Tidal wave, monsoon, must be some other word I can use there too. A tsunami, there you go. So on the other side is a letter that Senator Jeff Sessions issued yesterday, talking about what Barack Obama is about to do. And I'll let you read the letter, but he talks in here about how this problem we have today started because of the DACA executive order from 2 years ago, and that has been so successful. I mean, you know, we would say it was horrible, but from Obama's point of view, it's been very successful. That he's going to do it again, but he's going to expand it so there will be even more. He's talking here about, I think it was 4 to 5 million that he wants to also give, quote, legal status in this country under an expanded DACA order. Now, as you know, the president has asked Congress for 4 billion diapers. I almost said 4 billion diapers because they're spending the money to buy diapers for these kids. $4 billion, all right, to give assistance to these kids that are coming across the border. But if we don't close the border, it's crazy. There'd be no end to it. You know, and what's really, I laugh about it, during the campaign, I tried to make immigration an issue because I mean, it's something that I think cuts across a lot of different problems in this country. But I could never get my opponent on the record to talk about immigration, as you might imagine. But those of you that pay attention know that the Republican Party was all geared up to pass so-called immigration reform right after the primary, right? And the only reason they haven't done it is because of this blow-up now with these kids coming through. So that's the only good political effect it's had. But nonetheless, the Republicans are talking about giving the president billions of dollars with no apparent assurance that we're going to close the borders. And at that time, during the campaign, people say, well, what are you going to do about it? They put the National Guard at the border. You can stop illegal immigration tomorrow by authorizing the National Guard at the border. Now, that's not the long-term solution, but that's the immediate solution. The long-term solution, yes, is to build defense and to have border patrols that are beefed up and all the rest. But you could stop it tomorrow with the National Guard, if you wanted to. But these folks don't want to. And part of the reason they don't want to is for political gain. We spent about $200,000 in our campaign. My opponent and his supporters spent about $2 million in the campaign. $325,000 was spent by the U.S. Chamber of Commerce to support my opponent. $325,000 from one group, U.S. Chamber of Commerce. Why? Because the U.S. Chamber of Commerce is desperate to get amnesty for illegals in this country. That's what they want, and they're buying Republican votes all across the country, spending millions of dollars in campaigns to make sure that the congressional members and the Senate members are going to support so-called comprehensive immigration reform, also known as amnesty to those of us that are paying attention. It's a horrible situation when we have the progressives on the left wanting to have a permanent underclass of voters to support the Democratic Party, and the crony capitalists on the right spending millions of dollars to make sure they have cheap labor, and congressmen and senators on both sides of the aisle raking up the cash to make sure it happens. And we, the people of the United States, carry the burden and suffer as a result. You know, I take my faith very seriously. And I believe what the Bible says, that you need to love your fellow man. And we need to be loving in every sense. What we're doing to these people is not loving. To have children or young people walking across the border, risking their lives. There was an article, I couldn't even read the whole article online today, about the young teenage boy's body that, you know, was going downriver in the Rio Grande because, you know, didn't make it. I mean, it's horrible what we're doing. And who are these parents sending these kids? You know, and the whole thing is just, it's a nightmare. And we have to have the courage to stand up and call it a nightmare and demand that our elected officials not put their political positions before their country. Because that's what's going on right now on this issue. And I'm afraid if we don't get a handle on it soon, very soon, it very well might be too late to overcome this problem. Because it's such a huge problem. Was there a question here?
Yeah. Don't the governors have the authority to activate the National Guard?
No.
Well, they did in Ohio back in the 60s.
Well, the governors have control of the National Guard, but when the governor of Arizona, Jan Brewer, a couple years ago, she threatened to do that. There was this whole big blow up, and they went to the United States Supreme Court has ruled unquestionably that the federal government is the sole authority to control border issues and immigration issues. So somebody else said this to me today. Oh, look, the governors could. Somebody said to me, well, the governors could just say those kids can't come to Ohio. Well, I don't know how you're going to do that. I mean, you can put the highway patrol at the crossing gate, and that's not going to. There's no mechanism, even if they had the authority, but they don't have the authority to stop it. But we do have the ability to at least punish the businesses that are hiring these folks, all right? And we have the ability to deny benefits like a driver's license and tuition benefits in order to not make Ohio a magnet, because we're all paying for it. And we're losing jobs as a result. You know, this is a jobs issue. It's an economic issue. It's a tax issue. It cuts across a lot of issues.
What I see from this issue of this immigration, like it or not, Americans are being dispossessed of their jobs in favor of foreigners. We're being pushed out of our own country. Now, for us over here, we pretty much made it in our country, but what about the kids?
Yeah.
Sure.
You want to get a job, you got to compete against the foreigners now.
Well, here's the craziness of it, to my mind. We have the Democrats on the one hand saying, well, we need to increase the minimum wage, right? Well, what is the greatest downward pressure on wages in the United States? It's illegal labor, because it's under the table, or it's well, Americans won't do those jobs. Well, you won't do the job for $7.50 an hour, but maybe you have to pay $15 an hour. That's the way the marketplace works. But if you have this underclass of labor pool that will work for less wages, what happens? The U.S. citizen who can't get the job goes on the system. I mean, this is the crazy part, because the jobs aren't available. So the illegals have the jobs, and the Americans are getting food stamps or whatever it might be. It's a recipe for economic disaster. Yes.
This thing that's happening right now on our border, and being familiar with things like Flower and Given and Solvency and all these things, I really think that our representatives need to educate our public more on this warfare strategy that's actually taking place.
Yeah.
And I really do believe what's taking place over there is modern warfare. It is the new way to take over at least America. without, hopefully, they're thinking shooting a shot, you know, as first city would do. So I think that